Hey guys, what's up? It's Natasha and welcome back to this week's video. Today I will be discussing all the books that I read in February. February was a really good reading month for me. I really enjoyed every second of it. I don't think it's because it was the month of love. I just think that this month it was just good books all around. But before we dive into that, please remember to like the video, subscribe, and comment down below what was your favorite read of February. And let's just jump right into the video. So the first book I read for February was the second installment in I believe it is the Underworld Gods or something like that from Karina Hall, and it is Crown of Crimson. This book is about a girl who sells her soul to death, but kind of in Finnish folklore type of thing. So she sells her soul to save her father because her father was diagnosed with cancer and she wants him to live his life fully, just for a few months. But unfortunately, she has to stay with death and she can't have that time with her father. And A Crown of Crimson is just a follow-up of her life in the underground and how she deals with her relationship with death. And it's a very good book. It is like a combination between, I would say, Beauty and the Beast meets Hades and Persephone. So very good. I really enjoyed it. I'm waiting for the next books to come out. They are supposed to come out this year. When, we don't know, but we're waiting. But for this book, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and it was my second favorite book of February. The next book I read was A Court of Thorns and Roses, and this was a reread for me. I'm sure you all know what A Court of Thorns and Roses is about, but it's basically just about this girl who is trying to keep her family alive while they're on the brink of starvation. And one day she comes across a deer, and while trying to decide if she's wow, that's a tongue twister. While trying to decide if she should shoot the deer, she sees a wolf. Taking a gamble and thinking maybe it's a fairy, maybe it's not a fairy, she shoots the wolf. Turns out it was a fairy, and one of the fairies in the fairy realm comes to collect debt, and he says to her that you have to stay with me for the rest of your life to live out your sentence. And it's basically just a Beauty and the Beast retelling with some twists here and there. But yeah, like I said, it was a reread for me, and the first time I read it, I gave it a 3 stars, but I bumped it up to a 4 stars. I think merely because I just love the characters that are in there. And then I also read A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin. They are the follow-up books after A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I gave both of them 5 stars. Then the next book I read was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This was also a book club pick read, and I was very iffy going into this book. Basically, it's about this girl who sees dead people, and she has a family that runs a funeral home, and she has this great relationship. She used to have a great relationship with her father and her family up until the point where something happened where she just had to move out of that small town. Now she is a ghostwriter for someone really famous, and she can't write the last book because she had a breakup and she doesn't believe in love anymore. She believes that love is dead. So she asks her editor, can he give her another extension? But he unfortunately declines because he says they have given her enough extensions. So unfortunately then her father dies and she has to rush to her family's aid. And in that, before she can do anything else, she opens the door and she finds is it her editor or her publisher? She finds him standing at the door and she figures out that he's dead. And there's a purpose behind why he is, and she is trying to figure that out throughout the whole book. And this book was it made you think of life in general and how scary the thought of death actually is. But the book also made you feel like whatever happens, as long as you have the people around you and as long as they love you and as long as they care for you, you can live your life and prosper and do whatever you love. You just need that support around you. And I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Then the next book I read was Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey, and I found this on Script. I didn't even know she was bringing out new books. I'm not a big stan of Tessa Bailey. I read her one book, of which I keep forgetting, and I wasn't a big fan of it. I think because I didn't relate to the character as much. But I decided to give her a second chance because I always believe if you don't like the first book, jump to another book, maybe then you'll like the author. And I read Secretly Yours, and this is about a botanist. I would call her a botanist, and she does like the gardens around the small town. She has had this huge crush on the Voss family's son, Julian Voss. but he just seems like this stuck-up guy who doesn't really care about her. They almost had a kiss incident and then nothing came of it because he just stopped the almost kissing and he dragged her back home. So now that he's back, she's wondering, is she gonna have that kiss again, or is she going to have to let go of her childhood crush? And this book is spicy. It is very spicy, but it's also, I wouldn't say it's enemies to lovers, it's more of a friendship to lovers. And it's so sweet how these two come together and they're trying to save a small business, and how they just pine for one another, but nothing really happens. It's angsty, it's spicy, and it's just so good. And I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Then the next book I read was The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Almas, and I was very hesitant to read this book. Really, I was, because if it was anything like The Spanish Love Deception, I was going to be very disappointed. But this book knocked my socks off. Basically, it's about, what's her name? Forgot her name. Rosie? But it's Rosie. She is the woman in The Spanish Love Deception. Lena, she's her best friend. And one day she's standing in her apartment and the ceiling of her apartment falls down. So she has to find a place to stay. Fortunately for her, her best friend is away on honeymoon, or she's away on vacation or something. And she has a spare key to her apartment and she goes there. But what she doesn't know is that Lena also gave, well, the blurb says rented, but Lena's cousin is also allowed to stay. And these two start fighting about who is going to stay in there. And eventually Lucas, who's Lena's cousin, he's just like, you know what, you have nowhere else to stay. Just stay here until they fix your ceiling, and then you can go on your merry way. And what transpires is just two good friends becoming these angsty people that just, you can see they care for one another, but none of them want to do something, because Lucas can only stay in America for 6 weeks before he has to go back to Spain. And unfortunately, Rosie doesn't want to have a relationship where her heart is broken. And what transpires these two to actually build a better relationship is the fact that Rosie is a writer and she currently has writer's block. So Lucas decides he's going to take her on, I think, 6 experimental dates so that she can rekindle that feeling of romance and pour it into her books. I'm sure you all know how that goes. I just enjoyed this book so much. It was a 5 out of 5 stars for me. I just love the book. The narrators for the book, because I listened to it on script, no, I don't know who they got to play Lucas, but he kept whispering in his mic, and then when Rosie would talk, he would talk loudly, and I was like, please help me understand why you did what you did. But I have my full review up here. If you guys want to go check it out, feel free. It's where I read The Dead Romantic, Secretly Yours, and the American Roommate Experiment all in one video for Valentine's Day. Then the next book I read was an ARC I received from Bookatour, and it was Death on Deck by Verity Bright. And this is a book that sits in the 1900s, and we follow a woman named Lady Eleanor, and she has a whole series that's dedicated to her. But for this specific book, we join her on this deck. Yes. We join her on this maiden cruise where they are going to, I believe it's from somewhere in England to New York, and they're cruising through the ocean. And while Lady Eleanor is just standing there, you know, she's catching fresh air, she's enjoying the ocean because that's how she grew up, she sees the scuffling happening in the shadows. And as she turns, she sees this man being shot and thrown overboard. And this just transpires into a whole murder mystery feel. It's cozy. It has a lot of food references to it. She has an English bulldog that is absolutely my favorite. His name's Gladstone. She has a butler that is funny and he's always there to help her. He's Clifford. And it's just all around a very cozy read. And if you really enjoy cozy murder mysteries and something that will actually just surprise you, because I didn't see the ending coming, I didn't see the guilty party to be the person that it is. Maybe I was just too invested in the book to care. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and it was my favorite read of February. Then the other ARC I received was Where the Lightning Goes by Jackie Salem from The Book Sirens, there we go. And this is about a girl who's been stuck in a house around a void for about 10 years, and she's trying to escape, and no matter what she does, every time she tries to escape she fails and she's locked up in a room. She can go nowhere, it's just where she is. So one day she finally escapes, and before she escapes, this person who's been looking after her says to her, you can't go out of my care, because once you do, you might fall into the arms of the most evil wizard you can find. And Elle says, well, it's better than staying here, and she falls from the sky, and she literally lands in this evil wizard's backyard. And it just transpires into a whole adventure story where it learns you how to accept yourself and your different types of things that you didn't really like about yourself. For example, you have this one side of yourself where you are too loud, and you don't like that side. This book it encompasses it all, and it helps you understand that whatever you are made of, it is actually it's who you are, and you should just embrace it. No matter what anyone says, it's who you are. Just accept it as it. It was a very good book, and I believe I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, that is all the books that I read in February. Like I said, it was a really amazing month. I really enjoyed the reading experience, and I do hope March is going to be one of those again. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, please remember to like, subscribe, comment down below if there are any of these books that you would like to read or the books that you have read, and I'll see you guys in a video next week. Bye!